Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Wednesday. It's time for this week's installment of Journey Through the Tarot. We are going to be looking at the Lovers. Of course, we are carrying on using our Housewives Tarot deck by Paul Keppel and Jude Buffum. This is a very down-to-earth, concrete, kitchen table kind of tarot deck. It's excellent for everyday use. And of course, if you're just tuning in now, I do have videos on the other cards that have come before the Lovers, so you're very welcome to watch those. And of course, let me know what you think if you want to. So, the Lovers. Interpretations of the Lovers cards, it varies considerably from deck to deck. I mean, if you just compare them side by side, the descriptions, you'll be able to see this pretty clearly. And one of the things is that it's good to keep in mind the author's intent when you're considering the meaning of the card and its images, as well as what your own intuition is saying. Because when it comes to what the author's intent was, well, that's going to show up in, the symbolisms and the artwork and just how they're really approaching the concept. So that's something to bear in mind. Another thing to keep in mind about the Lovers is that it's not really a clear-cut good or bad sign, even if you're doing a romantic love reading. It's complicated, so the surrounding cards are going to be extremely relevant, and they will absolutely affect how the card should be interpreted. And I would say especially in this deck. As you can see, we've got a couple in this rather nice vintage car, and they appear to be driving off a cliff, or they have already leapt off the cliff in the car. And I think that's a pretty apt metaphor for how romantic love can feel. It's not for nothing that it's the expression that we fall in love, and they are certainly falling at this moment. I don't see, yeah, you can tell a little bit, but this couple is clearly wrapped up in each other. You've got the little hearts, they're looking in each other's eyes, they're more or less blinded to the rest of the world, and that includes their current situation of the car going kaflooey. I think that's a state that most of us can relate to. At some point in our lives, I think almost everyone feels like this. So let's look at our trusty booklet. Now, the key words for the Lovers are romance, infatuation, and sex. And, well, it's obvious why. These are things that are all tied up in the idea of romantic love. It is about that feeling of being captivated by someone. It's particularly hard-hitting if it is the essence of that person themselves, their very energy. That's going to definitely get you all googly-eyed. Infatuation is also at play here, because sometimes what we feel is infatuation, not actual romantic love. And of course, the sexual relationship between partners is core to romantic love. I don't buy into the idea that you have romantic, non-sexual relationships, because even if that impulse is never acted upon, the feelings of that sort are still there. So, moving along, let's see what the booklet has to say further. The Lovers teach us that there is more to romance and relationships than long gazes into each other's eyes and the thrill of putting out in the back seat of a convertible. I wouldn't have expressed that idea in quite that way, but let's carry on. Matters of the heart are always complicated, and with love comes many responsibilities and repercussions. Don't be blinded by beauty and physical attraction. Keep your eyes on the road and watch for hazards ahead. Cautionary words. But let's unpack this entire description. I made a couple notes. So first, the idea that romance, emotional attachment, and love are all multi-layered. I think this is very true. There isn't, you'll even see this in fiction. Some of the best relationships that you enjoy the most, they're not one note. It's not just, they belong together because of this. There's more to it. There's the dynamic, there's their body language, there's the tone of voice, their facial expressions, the choices that they make and how they deal with each other, and how they work together as a team. There's a lot going on there, and if that's true in the fictional setting, how much more so is that true in real life? Our romantic relationships, they are going to affect everything else. They can affect the decisions we make about our profession, where we live, how we live. Do we have children? Do we not have children? Do we adopt? What do we do? There's just so much there. So there's never just one thing. There's never anything that's just completely straightforward, or I could sum up this relationship in a sentence or even one word. It's just not how it goes. Another thing I think is worth keeping in mind is that any relationship that is genuine and real, there are going to be a natural process of ups and downs. Now, our cute little couple here is headed for a down, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to have the momentum to go back up again. But in order to do that, you do have to have a two-way street of communication and cooperative actions. If it's just one person carrying all the water, it's not going to last. Sooner or later, it's going to end. And I would say there are some marriages that, they're still legally married and, they appear to be getting along, but one person is really carrying the burden and the other person is kind of rolling along. And just because they have a legal status of marriage does not mean that their relationship is reflective of that authentic state. Something to think about, especially when you're doing readings. It's another reason why this card is not necessarily a good sign when it's coming up. It's complicated. And next I'd like to address the idea that romantic love does come with obligations and consequences. And this isn't a bad thing. It's what makes it real. It's what gives it the potential to be long-lasting. It's what gives it depth. If you don't have any obligations to the person that you're in love with, well, what are you doing with them exactly? You say that you like them and that they're important to you, but you're not willing to step up and help them with their goals, and they're not willing to do the same for you. When it comes to consequences, one of the most obvious consequences to romantic love is that there could be children that come along. So all of this adds to the relationship. It doesn't take away from it. And if we find ourselves in a reading and the person, they're kind of eschewing the idea of, I don't want anything serious, it's not like that, bad sign, because whatever they're going through, it's obviously not real, or it's not likely to be explored to the point where it can become real, because they're trying to get away from the idea of obligations and consequences. It's actually a sign of some pretty deep-rooted immaturity. And that might seem strange because people of all ages come for love readings, but how shall I put this? Age and wisdom do not necessarily go hand in hand. And sadly, maturity is something that we have to work and evolve on. It's not going to come automatically. More's the pity. And that really shows up when it comes to people's romantic relationships. There are some very deeply immature people who have some very distorted ideas about how things work, and it creates problems. Next, surface level attraction alone does not equal love. I think that is extremely true. Being physically attracted to someone is certainly important. You do need to have that. That's part of the components of having a sexual relationship with the person later on down the road. But it's not enough. If for no other reason, it's because beauty fades. The first thing that's going to go with the years is your face. Time takes a physical toll on absolutely everyone, and if you're just looking at the outside shell, well, you don't know what that person's character is like. You don't know about their hopes and dreams, their ambitions. You don't know about their flaws, and it's really important to know about their flaws and for them to know yours. Everyone has a right to know what they're getting into here. And without that knowledge and without dealing with people on a real level, you can't grow. It can't be real. It never goes beneath the surface, and you're setting yourself for failure down the road. Essentially, it's going to be the person who is inside, the being, that energy, that core personality within. That is what you ultimately bond with or don't bond with. So decisions about your romantic life should always be based on who that person actually is. If you talk more about their pretty eyes than you do about anything real about that person, it's probably a bad sign. Think about how they live their lives. Who are they really? How do they treat you? Everything else is just kind of a surface issue. Those core things, that's what's really going to determine if you're compatible and if you can last. So I suppose the question that's really worth asking is, are both parties committed enough to navigate the inevitable bumps on the road? It takes effort to maintain a relationship, no matter how compatible the people involved are. Their actions are going to speak louder for words. I don't care how much people are saying, oh, I love you, I adore you, let's post 1,000 pictures of ourselves on social media and write little love notes to each other where everyone can watch them. If you go past that and then you see that on the day-to-day basis they're not really treating each other as if they're anything special, they don't protect their relationship, they're not functioning as a team, everything else they're doing for the benefit of other people to watch and gag, quite honestly, doesn't mean anything. Does not mean a thing. It's going to come down to the inside person and actions. So what happens when this card appears in a reading? Because clearly context is going to be everything. So we've really got to be especially sensitive to the overall flow of energy throughout the rest of the reading, looking at the relationships between the cards. And also, we're going to have to really listen to our gut on this. Because it is complicated, as we've barely scratched the surface, but it is clearly complicated. Now, what if this is just a standalone card? Let's say you pull the Lovers as your personal card for the day. Or if you're just pulling a single card for someone who just wanted a real quick reading. Well, I think it's much more challenging to read this card by itself than it is when you have the benefit of other cards, so you can get more context. So I suppose best thing you can do is look for the visceral reaction that the card has upon the querent. You know, how are they, when they look at it, when you explain to them the general meaning, how are they reacting? Try to be as tuned into them as possible. Another thing to listen to very closely is your own intuition. What direction is your intuition taking you? Maybe it'll match up with the querents, maybe it doesn't, but you've certainly got to listen to that. Another helpful thing that I can think of to do, if it's just a singleton card for one person, is discuss the possibilities of the meanings with the querent. Examine it from every angle you can think of. Make it clear this is a complicated card. It can mean different things in different situations. I think that'd be a pretty advisable thing to do, and yeah. You wouldn't think a card like this would be so complicated. You think it would be much more straightforward, but I think so far in our journey through the tarot that this is the most complicated card to date, so it'll be interesting to see if any other cards dislodge it from this particular pedestal. Now, next week we will carry on. We will look at the Chariot, good old family station wagon there. I hope you'll come back for that, and I think that's it for now. Be sure to join us at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. There'll be a link in the description box below. I'd love to talk tarot with you, and as well as anything else having to do with paganism or witchcraft, so hopefully I'll see you there. But bye for now.